In this video, we are joined by Theme Park Conductor. Theme Park Conductor, it's been a very, very long time since he's been back on the show. We are very excited today. We have a ton of great topics. He was at Universal Studios Hollywood for the 1-year anniversary of Super Nintendo World. We're going to talk about his experience and what he saw and experienced over there. We're going to talk about some Disneyland Forward. We're also going to talk about this lightning lane mess happening at the park, not just in Florida, but also in Anaheim. We're talking about that up next here on OG 55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG 55. We have a fantastic show for you all today. Before we dive into the festivities, we're gonna introduce our special guest today, Theme Park Conductor. He has been on the channel, but it's been a very, very, very long time. Conductor, it's always a pleasure having you on, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to talk with you guys, and I'm very happy to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could remind everybody where they can find you on social media.
Sure, of course. On YouTube, you can find me at Theme Park Conductor. On Twitter, you can find me at Theme Conductor. And on Instagram, you can find me at Theme Park Conductor. So definitely hit me up. I definitely have some great content coming up in the next couple months, if not towards the middle of the summer. So get ready for that one. Perfect,
perfect. Follow, subscribe, Theme Park Conductor. And right over here, we got George, the Italiano. The Al Pacino of the Disney community, the Mr. Italiano.
The Italiano. About it.
Forget about it. If you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go. There we go. Let me see if do I have a little sound for this? Not really. I don't really have. Well, I have this.
May I have your attention, please?
There we go. That works. Star Tours. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah, why not? That's awesome. That's classic.
Right? Classic Star Tours voice.
May I have your attention, please?
You know, very 80s. All right, let's rock and roll, boys. Let's rock and roll. Now, this tweet is courtesy of our friend Dave over there at Fresh Bakes. Okay, so this lightning lane situation at the parks has been a total mess. Ooh. And it's not just here in Anaheim. Florida, we're seeing it too, all over the place. We're seeing all the footage on Twitter of these massive, massive lines. Let's go ahead and play this little clip from Dave. And then on the other end of that, I'll start with you, Conductor, and we'll talk about this because this is a big mess. They got to fix this. This is crazy. Wow.
That is insane.
Yeah, that is ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
It's the whole freaking land.
Yeah.
The whole land is one big giant lightning lane.
That is...
And all these people paid to stand in this line. My God. There it is.
Never in my life, ever. I've seen a long line, but never like that. And that's paid, individually paid lightning lane. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy, you guys. And we're seeing similar footage from Florida as well. Conductor, what is going on here? This is supposed to be the fast lane. Why is it looking like this?
It's supposed to be the fast lane, but it's not. You know what? After reviewing that video just now, I don't like to speak ill will of anything or anybody, but it looks to me like Disney is getting greedy. And they're just saying, hey, open the floodgates and let everybody that visits the Disneyland Resort on the day of to sit there and buy a lightning lane. And good luck to the general public who doesn't.
Yeah, and that's the problem. It's good luck to the general public who doesn't, and it's also even good luck to the general public that does. Nobody wins in this situation, basically,
no,
you know?
No.
And it's crazy too, because it's like you either have to raise the price like triple what, or double, I mean, triple or even quadruple what it is now, which is like around $30, I believe.
Yeah.
You got to really crank that up, $150, $200 or something, make it a little more exclusive.
Sure.
Or you have to vastly mitigate how many you let in. If you're going to have a $30 price tag, you can't oversell this thing. And that's what's happening, is they're overselling it. Yeah. And like you said, Conductor, it kind of looks a little greedy. What do you think, George?
Absolutely. And to be honest with you, it's like, what's the lesser of the two evils? It's like, if I'm going to wait in a line anyway, I might as well just wait in the standby line. At least I got to wait in line for free, you know, than to pay an upcharge and still wait in a line. I mean, this is just getting ridiculous. I mean, yeah, Lightning Lane is supposed to be utilized as exactly what it's called, Lightning Lane. It is a lane that is supposed to be very fast, very, you know, proficient, where it's like you're moving, you know, not where it's like a complete standstill. And as you had mentioned at the very beginning of the introduction, OG, it's like it's across all boards. It's coming from Disneyland, it's coming from Walt Disney World, and what's oddly enough is it's all happening at once. Like for Radiator Springs Racers, for Rise of the Resistance, for Tower of Terror, for Peter Pan's Flight. Peter Pan's Flight down at Magic Kingdom, it went all the way back to the hub and circled around Cinderella Castle to enter into Fantasyland. I mean, and that's just the Lightning Lane, not the standby line.
So you said it is. I do notice this, though. There's a lot more footage and a lot more issues with it lately. I don't know why that is, but maybe internally they're taking in more people. And yeah, obviously that's not something they're going to announce, probably. No. It's an internal thing, but maybe that's what's going on. You think that might be the issue here, Conductor, where maybe they've kind of cranked up the input here a little bit or something?
More than likely. They probably did that just to inflate things. You spend so much money just to get into the parks, and then the fact that, you know, a family from Iowa or Michigan or anywhere in the Midwest that doesn't live in California, that can't visit these theme parks on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, you know, they want to experience everything. And obviously, from what you guys see from the video, it's just how can you enjoy something like that? It's impossible.
Yeah. And honestly, this is where somewhat that I agree of this. I don't believe of the whole notion that, you know, just speaking of like Walt Disney World, where it's like the #1 ripoff, you know, in the country, you know, I think that's going a little bit too far. But where the ripoff comes from, I feel like this is part of it. Right. And it's not even just for Walt Disney World. This goes for Disneyland too. It's like you're charging someone, it's $30, you know, but do that times the number of people in your family. Sure. And you're not getting what you are supposedly granted, no pun intended, with Genie Plus. That you're basically giving Disney your money to just stand in another standby line. Yeah. And to me, that is an ultimate ripoff. I'm sorry, it is.
No, it is. No, you're right. We talked about that #1 ripoff survey, and I think this Lightning Lane Genie Plus stuff is absolutely part of that equation. It's a PR mess. It's a logistical operations mess. And here's the thing with the paper fast passes, for the most part, those were not monetized. I know we had, what was it, Max Pass out here?
Yeah.
And that was a charge. But for by and large, the fast pass system was not monetized. So Disney didn't really have an incentive to, like, you know, just print out more and more and more and more and more, because it's like, you know, but with this, it's like each person's buying this for like $30. There's a financial interest there for them to keep churning those numbers, and they're doing that. They're not slowing it down. And this is what the result is. You see these massive lines, and then it results in people getting ticked off. They go to City Hall, they complain, then they go and they get approached by the casino.org, and they say, yeah, Disney's the biggest ripoff because I just waited 5 hours in the Lightning Lane, and it leads to a whole big issue, right? A whole big mess. So, Conductor, I want to ask you, what would you do if you're head of the Disneyland Resort, or you're the president of all the parks, right?
Sure.
So what would your solution be? Like, if you were in charge, how would you approach fixing this thing?
So how I would do it, quite honestly, is very simple. if we're going to charge $30 for Genie Plus, let's say, you know, let's just say, for example, Disneyland California Adventure, let's say we get, I don't know, 50,000 people in one day. Let's just say that. Okay, so I would limit the amount of Genie Plus, because it's either that or what you're saying, OG, is the triple the amount of what it costs. That way, not the average Joe who goes on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, whatever it is, always buys it, because this is the end result right here. You know, again, you know, when you live like you and me live, OG, in Southern California, and we're very fortunate to go to these parks and whatnot, and everyone else that lives in California gets to go to these parks, and they're buying Genie Plus, it ruins it for the family that doesn't live in California, that isn't fortunate. So how I would fix it permanently would be limiting the amount of Genie Plus each day. Based on the crowds that we get, that's a fraction of the crowd attendance is what you sell on Genie Plus. That is the way to fix that.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. They have, and yeah, they have to do that. Obviously, they're not doing that, or they're not doing a very good job at it, and we're seeing massive backups because of it. What would your solution be, George? Similar to Conductor, or?
Yeah, I do like the whole notion where it makes sense that for the families from, you know, Iowa or Missouri or Colorado, you know,
shout out to Jay Shear,
shout
Colorado.
out to Jay Shear. That, yeah, like when they get that once in a lifetime opportunity, and they may not know when the next time they can go back, and it's their one shot to maybe utilize Genie Plus to their advantage. And then, you know, no offense to you guys, I mean, I'm probably just not there as more as you guys, and you guys are the locals, but, you know, we have that opportunity, you know, to, you know, go as often as we do. So it's like, you know, do we really need Genie Plus, you know, when we can get on the ride like God knows how many times, you know, for how many times that we're out there? You know, I don't think, you know, I'm not too big on the thing of saying, you know, it isn't fair, you know, life isn't fair, but I mean, like, there are, you know, rules to be had there, you know, to that whole notion, you know.
It is, and I understand the argument. Like, well, I'm like, if you know, and I completely agree with you. But I understand the other side of the argument. Well, I pay for my Magic Key, and I have a right to use it too. The Genie Plus stuff and all that, and I understand that. But at the same time, it's like, okay, so so you're gonna like clog up the system to ride Pirates for the 9,000th time.
And I think this is why Disney is kind of pulling back on those Magic Keys.
Yeah.
I really think they're trying to kind of lower that number little by little.
Yeah.
And that's
well, see, the other thing, the other option Disney can do, and there would be a lot of things they would have to work out, obviously, would be like what Universal does here out in Hollywood. So if you have, let's say, like the Gold Pass or the Platinum Pass, after 3 p.m., you have Express, okay? So let's say they allow the Magic Keys after 3 p.m. to do a Genie Plus. What they're calling it, Genie Plus, for only Magic Keys, that's it. But the people that just bought a single day, a 3-day ticket, they have access to buy the Genie Plus, and Magic Keys are excluded from getting that only because after 3 p.m. or 2 p.m., whatever, they have access to Genie Plus. And either it could be from that point, that time, all the way until the park closes, or they can, you know, minimize that and say, hey, well, in 3 hours, you can use it 5, maybe 6, 7 times. You know, and try to make it work that way. So that's another option. But again, that would be a lot of working out to do.
And I think
that'd be a great idea, actually. If you mitigate how the Magic Key, the key holders, you know, get into this Genie program or whatever you call it, that would help a lot, actually. I think, Conductor. I think that because then I think it's important to prioritize the people who are not there all the time.
Yeah, and especially people that don't have magic keys.
Exactly.
And that brings to my next point. I think that's going to change a lot, and I know we'll get into this, as in the later on in the video, when Disneyland starts expanding, when Disneyland starts growing. Right now, Disneyland is looked upon as a locals park, which in a way I don't see it as it is, but majority of the time it is, because let's face it, the size of Disneyland right now is not really what you call a place where people would really travel out of their way, because you only need a day or two to be at Disneyland. So for someone that's coming like from out of country or cross country or what have you, they're going to more so lean towards Disney World over Disneyland. However, I feel like that tides are changing, because that's what the whole point for Disneyland Forward is going to be. And I think once this becomes a multi-day, week-long experience for the resort, they're going to get a lot more traction with travelers. And I think that's going to kind of, in a way, I don't want to say hurt locals in a sense, but when it becomes a tourist destination just as big as Disney World's, in a sense, I think that'll kind of flesh out everything. But I think right now it can't, because locals are just taking over Disneyland.
Yeah, and you have to mitigate that. And I know the locals, I know the key holders are going to get upset with that idea, but it's like, I think it's the fair thing to do. It's kind of like if I'm on Main Street, right, and I'm going to watch the fireworks, the show that I've seen 100 times, and I got a family from Japan behind me with a small kid who's seen it for the first time, and I'm tall as hell with my hair. It makes me like 6'4", right? I'm not going to be a jerk and be like, yeah, just stand right there. I'll be like, oh, go in front of me. You've never been before. This is your first experience. Like, there's a level of like, courtesy, I think, that as locals who are, like you say, conductor, blessed to go all the time, that we should sort of step back a little bit occasionally and say, hey, you know what? Let this family enjoy. Let them have their moment. I have my moment every weekend here. Let them have their moment, that once in a lifetime thing. And it goes back to the Genie Plus Lightning Lane stuff. I wouldn't mind, as a key holder, to have some of that stuff pulled back for me if it meant the person from Japan, the person from Australia has a better time, and because they have more access. I'm totally fine with that. Absolutely fine with that. Now, I know a lot of people are going to push back with me on that because, I pay for my key too. And I understand that we all pay money to go there. But I do think there's going to have to be a little give and take here. Go ahead, George.
No, conductor, I have a question for you. This is like off topic, but kind of on topic. It kind of builds into the Genie Plus. There's also another issue that I think the Disney parks are going through right now. And I actually just experienced this with a friend of mine last night. And she told me that she was going to Disneyland, and I assumed that she's been there before. I don't know how long it's been or what have you. And I ended up finding out that she didn't purchase her ticket or make a park reservation. And I thought, oh gosh, this is like the night before and it's a Saturday. I said, there's no way. I jumped on the website. Sure enough, single day tickets blocked out. Park hopper blocked out. The only thing that was available was the SoCal ticket, which fortunately she is a California resident and what have you. So I'm assuming, I actually didn't hear back from her that if she did get the SoCal ticket or not. But this to me is, I feel like, another issue along with the Genie Plus and the Lightning Lane fiasco. When is it ever going to come to a point where, I get that Disney is saying they're using it for data or what have you. Me personally, I think these park reservations need to stop. They really do. If any other park in the country, in the world, can make do without park reservations, Disney can too, because they've proven that they've done it before prior to 2020.
Yeah. Oh, they could definitely do it.
Yeah.
They just don't want.
What's your take on all that?
Well, my take is that you're exactly right. The reservations, along with the Genie Plus and all this all started happening after 2020. And I think all three of us can agree at least the Disneyland Resort. I personally haven't been to Orlando yet, but here out in California, I can tell you that as a resident, buying a Magic Key, or whatever they called it, because it seems like forever since they called it something else. I kind of felt that the Disney company, they're using 2020 as an excuse to do all these random rule changes and all this other stuff, and it's not only affecting the locals, like OG said, it's affecting everybody that wants to go. And I think the biggest thing, like I said, is the reservation system. If the Disneyland Resort can let that go and drop it, I think all the other restrictions are just going to fall apart in pieces, and we're slowly going to get back to where we were. Probably not 100%, but at least above 50%. That's the way I see it. That's the way it needs to go back to, because quite frankly, to be honest with you both, if Walt Disney was alive today and he saw some of the crazy nonsense that's going on out here in California and Orlando, he would just lose himself, because how can it be magical when you're waiting in lines and you're paying all this money thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to be first in line at Space Mountain. How in the heck can you do that when you're waiting in a 3-hour line? Again, the reservation system and Genie Plus, they need to go. I'm sorry. And if Disney and Bob Iger and Daddy Josh, as you both call him, want to make good with the community, just because they're talking about all this Disneyland Forward nonsense and whatnot, if they want to make good with the people that absolutely go pretty much all the time, and even people that travel across the United States and out of the country to keep supporting Disney and put them in a positive track, I really think they need to at least announce something at D23 this year and stop with all this blue sky nonsense, because it needs to stop.
No, the blue sky stuff is obnoxious. It really is. It's a cop out, is what it is. Yeah. And what I think, you're absolutely right. I think what they need to do, I would do this. I think it's impossible to necessarily go back completely pre-pandemic. But what I would do, I would agree with you, Conductor. I think we get rid of reservations, open that up. We definitely have to reimagine or whatever they got to do to Lightning Lane, because that's not working. They have to mitigate that, or they have to raise the prices on that. And also, and this is where I'm probably going to lose a lot of support, but I've always believed this, that they have to mitigate the amount of pass holders. It got to a point where it was just too much, at the resort, and it causes a lot of issues operationally and all kinds of stuff. I think it also fosters this sort of culture of, like, when you go all the time or you go too much, I think people kind of get a little jaded and bitter, because it's like, when you go anywhere too much or have anything too much, you start to get desensitized to it, and you start to nitpick, and it leads to a lot of complaining and things like that. I think that it would be better if they limit the amount of those key holders, limit those numbers drastically, and sort of pull back on that. And then what you do is then you give, so you're taking away, but then you give back to the people too, where you get rid of reservations, and you reform, or you reconfigure the Genie Plus stuff and all that for the better. So it's kind of a give and take thing, but they have to do something, right? Because before the pandy, the parks were nuts. It was way too crowded. It was way too packed. You had people going, 6-7 times a week. It's like Disney's got to mitigate those key holder numbers. And I know people are not going to like to hear that, but there has to be something here. We have to give a little bit here. You can't have cheap prices, access for everybody, and then go in there and expect no crowds. There's going to have to be something that we as fans give up. And I think that mitigating the keys a little bit more than they are now, I think would be a good compromise.
What scares me the most about that is that Disney themselves, whether it's Bob Iger himself or Daddy Josh, whoever it is, whoever. I think until the city of Anaheim approves Disneyland Forward and they start building it, we might see this type of nonsense for years to come. And I hate to even say something like that because I don't like saying it, but it's you see it. And we're just basically blue skying Disneyland Forward. It hasn't been approved. Everyone's been talking about it all over social media, all over the internet. There's been council meetings and park community meetings and whatnot about it. But I just feel that Disney's going to get more and more greedier, and you can see it, with these theme park companies, whether it's the Disneyland Resort, whether it's Universal, even Knott's Berry Farm with freaking Montezuma's Revenge. You see it at Six Flags. These companies are getting greedy, and it's sad. It really is a sad ordeal.
Oh, yeah. Well, George and I just talked about the other day in a video, and we're going to get into Universal in a second, but those little boba fizzy drinks in Nintendo World were like $14. Yeah. I mean, that's insanity. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Absolute insanity. You know, something's got to give here. Absolutely. So speaking of Super Nintendo World, Conductor, you had the opportunity to actually experience Super Nintendo World on its 1-year anniversary at Hollywood. What was that, last week, I believe?
It was last Saturday.
Okay. How was that? How was your experience? Good, bad, ugly?
So it was good for the most part. I got there super early. So I did the early access because I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure how the crowds were going to be. I heard days prior that the park was just going to be packed. It was going to be a madhouse. Everyone was going to run the Nintendo because of the golden power band and the button that you can get. This right here,
nice.
The 1-year anniversary button that were limited. So I decided to play it safe, and I did the early access. Okay, well, I got there. There was a little bit of crowds, not too much, because they're letting people in early. And I saw the outside of the park, the gate and everything. It was decorated very nicely. No complaints. It had the 1-year anniversary banners everywhere. It was great. Once we started getting into the lower lot where Super Nintendo is for Hollywood, I walked inside the land, and I have to tell you both, I was expecting decorations. I was expecting more banners, maybe a special item for the 1-year anniversary that people could buy. Special items, food items at Toadstool. I was definitely expecting the land to look a lot cleaner. It was not cleaner. Just like you both did a video, I think it was a couple days ago, if not a week ago, on the condition of Super Nintendo World. And that's what scares me the most. What scares me the most is Hollywood is such a smaller version of Super Nintendo World than what Japan has, what Orlando's getting, and Epic Universe. And what scares me the most is with all the things that you can see, it doesn't, you don't need a magnifying glass. You don't need to get in a special little corner to see it. You can see the animatronics are filthy. You can see the floor is absolutely dirty. You can clearly see part of the walls chipped, some of the play aspects for the stamps, even to the point of Mario Kart, the little M emblem on the steering wheel, a lot of them peeled off. There were multiple seats on the actual ride vehicles that were closed off because the steering wheel activation for your band wasn't working. So I was disappointed on that aspect. I did go to Toadstool thinking, hey, it's the 1-year anniversary. They were going to have some type of food item special to the 1 year. No, they did not. And they also had multiple items off the menu that were not even available. And you would think on such a historic day for Universal Hollywood, they would have literally everything stacked food-wise for Toadstool.
I mean, at least have the baseline, like the menu.
Sure.
You know, if you're not going to do anything extra, at least have what you normally serve. But you're saying they don't even have that.
Yeah, yeah. They like the giant meatball fireball challenge, the Bowser. They didn't have it. They didn't have one of the salads. They didn't have. I think it was the mushroom soup. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
All the more you would think, because it's the 1 year anniversary, you think that would be more up on their game with that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad enough if it would to be a regular any given day.
Sure.
But for the anniversary day, that's very sad.
Well, and this is the thing too, Conductor, and I'm glad you brought this up, because we talk a lot about it on the channel, and it's not to like, you know, bag on Universal, but like, this is the thing, right? Because the fans don't hold Universal accountable. And so these big corporations like a Comcast, they feel, you know what? Do we really have to clean this land? They're not going to give us any shit online. They're too focused on the mouse house. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And the result of that is exactly what you're talking about, Conductor, is that filth, things breaking, chips on the walls, all this stuff that we're seeing is because nobody's holding them accountable. They don't have people online on X and Instagram and all these social media platforms calling them out for this stuff. Very few. And so they feel they can get away with it. And if you're a mega corp like Comcast and you feel you can make an extra buck with not having to do it, you're not going to do it.
Yeah, exactly my point. And it scares me because Hollywood, you know, they're going to be celebrating their 60th anniversary on, I believe, July the 4th of this year. And what scares me the most about Super Nintendo World, especially a brand new land that Hollywood hasn't had since Harry Potter replaced the amphitheater in that area, is what scares me is if this is how Universal is going to treat our version, which is, again, a way smaller version, which I don't agree at all. They shouldn't have made it that small. It should have been a lot bigger than it was. What are we supposed to see in Orlando? Because the weather is a lot more harsher than it is out here in California. And they're obviously going to have a bigger version of Super Nintendo World, even from what I heard, rumor-wise, bigger than Japan's. So they're going to have a couple little extra things. And you got a lot of animatronics, especially for the Yoshi attraction, that are outside, exposed to the elements. And what scares me is, are they actually going to take care of that? Or are they going to let that get all dirty, filthy, and just messed up? That's what scares me.
Exactly. What are your thoughts, George?
Yeah, I mean, Conductor, your points are very valid, because especially, I mean, I've been to Florida many, many times, and the weather is completely unpredictable. You know, it could be bright blue skies 1 minute, and then the sky can turn dark and gray, and it starts downpouring, you know, and it's like they have to be prepped and prepared for, you know, those aspects, you know. And I think that's the issue with Universal, because when you look at a lot of their attractions, majority of them are outdoors. Yeah. So when you put that aspect into a state like Florida, where in every land there's a coaster, you know, and it's outdoors, you know, and you have like these outdoor attractions, even like, as you had mentioned, Conductor, with the Yoshi attraction and the Donkey Kong, you know, attraction. I think that's going to be outside. I know there's parts of it that's going to be indoors. But, you know, there's still parts of it that's going to be outside. So when you have bad inclement weather like that, it's majority of your attractions are going to be closed down. You know, so it's like, and then again, to your concern with a lot of the layouts of the land, you know, the wear and tear, you know, if they don't utilize the proper materials, which, you know, sometimes you have to spend more, you know, for it to actually, you know, stick, they're going to have to keep spending even more money to keep replacing and fixing stuff. Yeah. And again, that is my concern too. Are they actually going to do it, or is it just going to sit and stagnant?
And this is one of the vinyls, one of the vinyl tarps overhangs at Super Nintendo World in Hollywood. This is California. It's only a year old. It already has holes in it. Yeah. How is this stuff going to survive the elements? And it's not just the vinyls. There's other stuff too, like on the wall and all that stuff too. Oh, but how, you know, in Florida, this isn't gonna last a month. No.
This is
insane.
That's what scares me. that and other things. Hollywood has had Nintendo for a year now, and we are still seeing like you're showing right now, OG. They can't even take care of that. Then you see pieces of Toadstool's shell. It's all jagged and cut, and then you see like the animatronics. You can see inside the mechanisms. It's like, I thought that was all supposed to be covered in, so it protects that type of stuff. So that's a concern for me, because with Hollywood bringing the Fast and Furious roller coaster, obviously that 99% of it's going to be outdoors. Are they really going to take care of that, or is that going to start rusting and having issues?
Well, look at Nintendo World, because Nintendo has a high standard for quality. It really surprises me, to be honest with you, that Nintendo hasn't stepped in with this stuff yet, because this is out of control, Yeah. But but even with Nintendo over their shoulder, the land looks like this. What's Fast and Furious going to look like? That's an in-house IP. There's no oversight on that.
No. And to your point, though, like with Harry Potter, every so often, from what I heard, J.K. Rowling goes into the park, and she'll sit there and go with a couple of people, either Universal execs or whatever, and she'll start pointing stuff out left, right, and center, and saying, "Okay, why is this like this? Why is this like this? Why is this like this?"
Oh yeah, she goes in with the white inspection gloves.
Exactly, exactly, and that's what a representative from Nintendo needs to do. Whether it's someone from the Japan office or it's an office in the States, they need to come here with white gloves and start nitpicking Universal and saying, "Why is this?" We're hoping, and again, it's not confirmed, just a rumor. If we even think. And this is definitely a blue sky for Hollywood. But if we even think about bringing the Donkey Kong expansion, and you can't even take care of Nintendo, why would we allow you guys to have Donkey Kong at Hollywood? Because, they're obviously going to have to do some configurations to get it into Hollywood, obviously. And they're hopefully not going to, do budget cuts on it. I hope to God not, if it does come. But how you expect to bring that if they can't even take care of the land itself? Well, and it's small.
It's small, yeah. Well, that's true. It's small, exactly. There's not, and a lot of it too is design issues, right? Because, like, for example, you talked a lot, Conductor, about the flooring looking really dirty and stuff.
Yeah.
And it sounds nitpicky, right? Because I mentioned the same thing too. My experience is the floor looks really bad, and people go, "Well, it's the floor; it's going to be dirty." But the thing is, it's painted. It's like themed. It's painted yellow and green. It's supposed to look like Mario, and that's the issue. It's painted flooring, so it's like it gets so scuffed up. And dirty. It looks really, really bad. And you would think that they would have come up with something that would have been, like, for example, and Toontown has its issues. I know I'm going to get in the comments. Believe me, Toontown is not absolved of their issues. They have a lot of problems. But I think one thing Toontown maybe did a little better was they used a lot more like pavers, like, bricks and things like that, which can handle traffic. And it doesn't look filthy like immediately. When you take concrete and you just paint it yellow, how long is that going to last before it looks absolutely horrible?
Not long. And
that night.
And again, just to prove a point, we're looking at Japan's version of Nintendo. We don't hear any of this. No chips, no dings, nothing's messed up. Everything's like the day it opened. And what again I'm trying to get to is, whether it's Universal or Disney, why is it that the international parks, which is mainly the Asia parks, as I'm going to call it, why are they always like top-notch Hollywood ready, and the domestic parks are just falling apart and they just don't care?
Yeah, and I think a big part of it too is in Japan, especially, they have just overall a different culture. I think in Japan, they respect property, I think, a lot more here than here in the States and things like that. So I think that plays a big part of it.
And they're not stingy.
Stingy. Right. They spend the money to power wash stuff and clean it. Obviously, I mean, the flooring, they should be cleaning that like at least like every other day, making sure it looks really good. No, clearly they're not. Because when I was there, it was filthy.
Yeah. No, when I was there last Saturday, you saw black spots all over all over the place, muddy, and it's just, I'm like, really? You know, especially for the 1 year anniversary. That's what kills me the most. It's not like a just average day, average Joe, whatever. We are talking about the 1 year anniversary, the one day out of the year that the land needs to look like it opened yesterday, and it wasn't. That's what pisses me off.
Maybe for the 2nd anniversary, everyone rushing to get the buttons. Maybe they'll be handing out tetanus shots.
Right.
Tetanus shots and Clorox wipes.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah, here's a Clorox wipe. Can you help us out here?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm telling you, absolutely crazy. And it's sad because I actually really enjoy the land. Sure. I've said many times on camera, like I went into the Mario Kart ride going, I was like kind of making fun of it almost. Like I was like, come on, it's a slow ride, but it's racing. That's kind of stupid. Then I rode it. I'm like, this is actually pretty fun. You know, it gives the illusion of speed and that. And I actually really enjoyed it. There's a lot of good stuff in this land, but the maintenance and a lot of these design choices are not it. It really is a problem, and they got to address it. They absolutely got to address it. Yeah,
they got to address it. And then another big problem I think all three of us can agree on is Toadstool with the reservation system, because I can't tell you how many times I have made a reservation and I would say about 3/4 of the restaurant is empty. I'm like, why can they not offer walk-ins? Why is that?
I've seen that a lot with not even just really with Universal, but even with Disney too, with a lot of the reservations where they say they're completely one restaurant in particular at Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World. Now, mind you, I do see it, you know, crowded, but then there's times where I look and I'm saying there's a table there, there's a table there, there's a table there, is Sci-Fi Dine-In. Yeah. Where, you know, I go in and it's like, luckily I've been very lucky to get a reservation, but it's like I go in and I'm like, there's still all empty seats in the convertibles. It's like, how is this where it's completely jam-packed, but you still have availability for maybe just even a few walk-ins? And it's like, you can never just go to a restaurant anymore in any of the theme parks, Disney, Universal, and just say, hey, I want to sit down and eat. It's like, well, do you have a reservation? No. Well, I'm sorry, it's booked out for the day.
Yeah, and again, just like we were talking about with the Disneyland Resort with the Genie Plus, that's where it affects the people that don't have the opportunity, that do not live in the state that these parks are, to enjoy it on a more often basis than a family that maybe can go once a year or once every 2 years. It destroys the whole thing.
Because it is a person really, like of what you're describing, Conductor, are they really going to know 60 days out to get up at 5:30 in the morning to be ready at 6 a.m. to start booking dining reservations? They're not going to know that.
You had, George, you have a friend literally yesterday from California even, who is not a Disney, I guess not a diehard Disney fan. She didn't know. She was like the day before, didn't know she needed a reservation. And it's like, and that happens all the time. And then thank God you helped her out with that. And, you know, I'm sure she got in, but it's like, that's an issue, because it's like, if she wasn't going to get in, then what is she going to do? Yeah. Well, she's going to go to one of the competitors then or something else. Like, Disney loses out money. Yeah. Like, this is a major problem, you know?
Yeah. If all the more, if they want to kind of compete healthy with these other theme parks and companies, you want to draw more attention to get people through your turnstiles. And this isn't the route to go.
No, it's not.
Absolutely. Now, last and final topic, Disneyland Forward. Now, George and I have talked about this a whole lot, but Conductor, I haven't had you on the channel in I don't even 9 months or so. It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, but we're gonna change that. We got to have you on more often. Absolutely.
It's been probably, I'd say, probably 4 hair products through Josh D'Amaro's at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you ain't kidding about that one.
Exactly. So what are your predictions for this thing? Because it's looking like it will probably get approved. It looks like the city is probably going to approve it in some form or fashion. There might be some give and take here and there, some compromise, but by and large, I'm expecting this thing to go through. What are your predictions in terms of what kind of stuff we can expect? like, you know, expansions and things like that?
Sure. So the obvious one, if not too many people have watched it, is the Hey Bricky video, which I would assume by now has gone a little viral. You know, everyone, the biggest IP that the Disneyland is looking at is Frozen, and I think that would be a guaranteed win for the Disneyland Resort. Looking at some of the plans and the maps that they have, it looks great in theory, but it's hard to kind of tell until they start building these lands. You know, again, we can speculate all day what can come. At least we know that Frozen, if there's any hint of that, we know where it's going. We've all seen the video, and from what Hey Bricky has posted, the spot where it's going couldn't fit anymore if he tried. It's like there.
Like the walkways line up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It lines up. So I think that would be a bonus. But again, I really honestly would encourage Josh tomorrow, even Bob Iger himself, to look at the international parks. See, you know, not exactly copy them, but take a page out of their playbook and say, okay, you know, look at the lands that they have, look at the rides they have, and kind of, you know, generate something. You know what I mean? Because like I think it's Tokyo Disney or it's Japan. I forgot which one. They're completely redoing their Tomorrowland, and from what I've seen, it looks absolutely incredible. I'm not gonna lie. Mm-hmm. If I had the finances, I would fly out there grand opening day to see that. It looks absolutely spectacular. So I think the Disneyland Resort has a lot of options. I just hope they're not bad options.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, they got to spend the proper amount to make it good, like the international parks, and they also have to do stuff that I think fits the parks that they're in. And one of my big concerns, this is my biggest issue with the Bricky video, not with Bricky himself. Bricky's brilliant. I mean, and he's absolutely right.
Oh, absolutely.
He's totally right. But my issue with Frozen going where he said it's going to go, right? In the is it the Stitch parking lot?
Stitch. Yeah.
Okay. My issue with that is, okay, so if Disneyland, because that would be a Disneyland expansion. If Disneyland is getting Arendelle, the one that they have in Hong Kong, major expansion. And Disney said that Avatar is coming to Disneyland Resort. That points to Avatar going into DCA.
Yeah.
Because obviously Disneyland isn't going to get a full-blown $1 billion Arendelle and then another $1 billion Pandora. It's just too much.
No.
So I have issues with that because look, I'm not super like nitpicky when it comes to theming. I've even said like with DCA, I think San Francisco is cool in California Park. I think it fits. It takes enough from the state inspiration wise. It fits. Cars Land, Route 66, car culture. That's good enough for me. Everyone is different, but for me, that was enough. But Pandora, I can't do the mental gymnastics on that one. You know what I'm saying? At all. No. And so it doesn't work out. So for me, that's worrisome. Now, George and I were talking, if they don't do the land and they just do an attraction and put the attraction in Hollywood Land, okay, cool. I'm okay with that because Hollywood is sort of a catch-all theme, pretty much. So I'd be fine with that. But if they want to somehow squeeze in a whole ass Pandora in DCA, no. And that worries me because if they're doing Frozen, where's the Avatar going to go? It has to be DCA.
Yeah, it has to. And they're David from Fresh Baked early on, he speculated a couple locations. Obviously, one was the Hollywood Studios area. Another one was the Wood Creek Forest across the way from the raft attraction, and also taking up the Little Mermaid show building. And I don't know. I don't know how many people would love to stay at the Grand California looking at that right outside their window, probably looking at a concrete wall. So obviously the only spot, if they're really hell bent on bringing it to DCA, would be the Hollywood Studios area. But what scares me is that, you know, they're going to claim, oh yeah, there's not enough room, so we're going to kind of have do it right and kind of cheap out on the rest. And Avatar is a franchise where that, just like Nintendo, it should have never been cheaped out. You need to go full board on that, especially like we're talking about with Frozen. You can't cheap out on that. It's making the company a lot of money with each movie that comes out and whatnot. And I could see either Pandora or Frozen, or even both, coming as a TV series on Disney Plus in the future. You can't, if you're going to bring the lands, you can't cheap out. And Hollywood Studios backlot, it's great and all, but I don't know if it's the size that Disney needs to build the whole land that Walt Disney World has. I just don't know.
The only option they would have for that, if Disneyland Forward gets approved, they could put it over there in that parking lot over by the Pixar Hotel.
Yeah.
Across the street. But that even has issues, right? Like logistically, acre-wise, yeah, you can fit something in there and make it good. Oh, cool.
Absolutely.
But then the issue is, the same problem is that it would be a DCA land because it's across from DCA, and Pandora doesn't fit DCA at all.
No.
And so that's one problem. And then on top of that, it's sort of separate because you have to travel to get to it a little bit. It's a little bit out. So it feels almost like its own. It's like DCA, but then it's almost like its own thing. And it even feels more like its own thing because the theme doesn't really work with the park.
No,
so it's a little disconnected, you know what I'm saying?
No, another thing really quick to that.
Sure.
Because Disney had also made the statement with Disneyland Forward about bringing new stories to life into the parks. They said Frozen, they said Tangled, they said Zootopia, they said Toy Story, they mentioned Tron. But then the other one that they mentioned was Black Panther, which I thought was quite interesting. Yeah. And because all the other IPs that they mentioned were either Disney or Pixar, you know, but then they mentioned Black Panther and it being the one Marvel. So does that necessarily mean that that's going to be, but they didn't really say Black Panther. They said Wakanda, which I thought was kind of interesting. So could that be an adjacent to the Avengers campus, or are they looking at a possible separate land of just Wakanda? Because then if you're going to do that too, how does that tie into California?
Well, that one, yeah, Wakanda itself, no, but there is, I remember in the movie, and it's been a few years since I've seen it, didn't they set up a Wakanda outreach center?
Like a, yeah. At the end of the movie, they showed that was in California, right?
It was, like, I think like Long Beach or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember this exact city, but
so if they go that route,
they can maybe go that route. That can be kind of like the gateway into the California theme a little bit.
Sure.
You know, depending on how they kind of massage that might work. But
you know what's funny about that? If Bob Iger and Daddy Josh, as we love to call him, decide to put Frozen and decide to put Pandora in the Disney. Let's say, just hypothetically, they do that. Okay. What I would like to see then at that point for DCA is to literally take the Hollywood Studios, demolish it to the ground, and extend Avengers Campus out, and still keep the Hyperion if that's what they want to do, and just base it off Avenger theater shows, but take over the whole Hollywood backlot and extend it out. And if you do that, okay, maybe I could see it, because then it's showing that DCA is not left behind, but they're also making they're making a decision to extend Avengers Campus out, since Disneyland is obviously going to get Frozen and Pandora. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. Hopefully they really ramp up like this e-ticket too, this Avengers e-ticket and stuff. Hopefully they get on that, because that's been a whole thing.
Let me ask you fellas this. This is kind of tied into what we're talking about now, but it's a little bit of a controversial topic. But I'm, you know,
George getting spicy.
Why not? Why the hell not? So based on what Disney was saying, they're doing like these little like pop-up workshops and everything to kind of set the table for the city council and and what have you, to get Disneyland Forward approved. And they said, I believe that they'll make the final casting vote in May.
Yeah,
I think if I heard that correctly. Now, with the shareholders meeting coming up in April, and not really knowing like what direction is going to go for the board and and who's going to be kind of part of the Walt Disney Company, does that, now not talking about anything else, not talking about Walt Disney World, not talking about the studio side, just the Disneyland Forward aspect of it, could that potentially throw a monkey wrench into the plans, whether it's good or bad, where it's it puts Disneyland Forward going into a different route based off of after the April 3rd shareholders meeting?
Oh, that's interesting. What do you think, Conductor?
I think with that, if there's going to be changes at that meeting where people are either going to leave or they're going to join the company, I definitely see a monkey wrench getting thrown into Disneyland Forward. Now, like George is saying, whether it can go good or it can go bad, we don't know. Hopefully good, but we just don't know. It's a 50-50 toss-up.
Yeah. I think in terms of like the approval process with the city, I don't think that'll have a problem either way.
No,
because I think any investor that would come in on the board, I think pretty much everyone would be on the same page with giving Disney more flexibility for expansions, which equals more money later on, and so I think that would be fine. Like, but the issue would be creativity though. Like what happens with that and the direction that they want to go in, that definitely could change, George. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean,
I don't either.
We haven't really talked too much about Peltz lately, but he's sold a bunch of shares right in the middle of a proxy battle, which is like, okay. And then he's finally going to give us his plan. I think it was like on March 6th, I believe.
March 6th. Yeah, it's
like
people are already voting.
They're already voting, bro. Like they're already voting. And then now you're going to do this. Now you're going to tell us your plan, and it's 30 days out, and people are already in the midst of voting. I mean, it's like Keystone Cops. It's like, I don't know what this guy is thinking. I don't know if he knows it's not going to happen. So he's
Keystone Cops. That's Police Academy.
There you go.
It's all over the place. We got to get Seymour on soon and talk about that whole Peltz thing, man, because that thing is like just out of control. Out of control. What are your thoughts on that, Conductor? The whole Peltz board drama.
You know what? Exactly what you just said. Too much drama. It's like, why can we not go back to just focusing on the magical aspect? Why create more drama? They literally just spent the last couple of years dealing with politics. Now we're going in from politics to drama. It's like, really? Why can't we just get back to the basics of the company?
Right, exactly. It's a distraction. I mean, I'm not opposed to other ideas or even challenging and pushing back on Bob Iger. I think that's checks and balances in government is healthy, and I think even on corporate boards it's necessary. So I'm not against that, but that doesn't mean that any change or any pushback is good. I don't think Peltz is suited for this, and the people he's surrounded himself with, the Perlmutter, who was not good for Marvel. I'm sorry. He just was not. Jay Verzullo, who I've been in the community a very long time, very, very long time. The fans despised Jay Verzullo when he was running the parks, okay? He was terrible. He was the one that did this whole One Disney initiative where it was like homogenizing the whole freaking park division. Like, you know how you get all these napkins now where it just has Disney parks on it instead of Disneyland and things like that? That was Verzullo, That was his thing, right? He wasn't good. So you have Verzullo, you got Perlmutter. Then he's like, I don't know. For me, he just hasn't impressed me at all. Then he's selling shares in the middle of the proxy fight. Now he's going to finally give us his plan a month out while people are voting. It's a mess. If someone competent wants to step up and challenge Bob Iger, I'm all for it. But Peltz ain't the guy.
No. And what scares me about Peltz is, are we looking at some type of Bob Chapek situation where he's just has no clue what he's doing? And again, I'm not saying that Bob Chapek, when he was running the company, it was all his fault, because I do blame Bob Iger as well. But are we looking at the situation again? that's what we all got to look at.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up, Conductor, because you're absolutely right on that. Like the Chapek was not great at all, but he got a lot of blame for a lot of stuff that was not his doing.
That he got thrown into.
Yes, a lot of that was Bob Iger. At the very least, Bob Iger got the ball rolling on this stuff.
Oh, sure.
And then Chapek was the one who had to deal with that afterwards. So absolutely. So, fellows, fascinating conversation. Really, really good stuff. Conductor, we will have you on again very, very soon. Love talking shop with you. If you could remind everybody where they can find you on social media, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So on YouTube, you can find me at Theme Park Conductor. At Twitter, you can find me at Theme Conductor. And on Instagram, you can find me at Theme Park Conductor. Conducting the news every day.
There he is, conducting. There it is. And was I doing? No, you're conductor. No, that's not a conductor, is it?
You know what? The conductor can either be this or it could be doing the whistle on the train. Either one. Yeah.
Which conductor are you?
I would say the one with the train. It sounds more interesting.
There, there you go.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
George is the Italiano, the host of Citrus Corner here on the channel. We had a great Citrus Corner yesterday, actually.
Yes,
really good.
Yeah, it went really well. I actually enjoyed it because right now there's not too much coming out of Walt Disney World as far as like hard breaking news, except for how long the lines are coming from Peter Pan's flight. You know, so it's
exactly.
You know,
exactly.
But I'm glad that I was able to, come up with some topics that could be used. So yeah, it was definitely a great show.
Absolutely.
Cool. If you could let everybody home know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go. There we go. Comment down below, everyone, your thoughts on everything we talked about. Super Nintendo at 1 year, at the 1 year mark. If you were there on that day, like Conductor was, definitely comment down below with your feelings on that. Disneyland Forward, Lightning Lane. I know everyone has opinions on that whole thing, and the Magic Keys and the reservations. Comment down below. We would absolutely love to hear from you. Thank you all so much for watching this episode of OG50. Until the next video, have a wonderful, wonderful day, everybody. Bye-bye now.
세상이 누구에게나 공평하게 추악해.